Hello guys, my name is SVB and I'm back with another video, and today I want to discuss a topic that's a little bit intangible but important nonetheless. Fun in Overwatch. It's hard to say empirically what the state of fun is in a multiplayer game like this, but I think it's fair to say that there is a potential problem in Overwatch with the fun and more accurately, the lack of fun that a lot of people have been feeling. Now, plenty of the community are very happy with the game and in fact would say that the game is in one of the best places it's been in a while. So this is not to say that this is an inarguable truth or that this is how everyone feels. But it can't be denied that when you take into account the people who've stopped playing the game and the people who love the game but are playing it a lot less recently, there's a very large number of people who feel like Overwatch just flat out isn't as fun as it used to be. And personally, I think there's some truth to this. Clearly, even the devs think there's some truth to this, as Jeff Kaplan's lengthy post in the Blizzard forum suggests. The fact that they're looking at radical ways to change the game's structure tells us that they know there's an issue here that needs to be solved, and I'll discuss that in detail later on. But in this video, I'm going to talk through 3 major reasons why I think people have become increasingly unhappy with how Overwatch has felt. But before I get started, I just want to make a quick announcement that on the Friday that this video drops, at 6 PM EST, I'll be hosting a special episode of the Group Up podcast featuring 3 of the most amazing Overwatch streamers out there, Cupcake, Barcode, and Faria, and we'll be speaking about the Speak Up movement and their experiences as female video game players. So make sure you tune in. And if at any point in this video you enjoy what you see or learn something new, then please do like, share, and subscribe, and consider signing up to my Patreon. But with that out the way, let's get to it, guys. So I think there's many connected reasons why Overwatch has not felt as rewarding to play as it once did, and I'll get into the more complex reasons for these in just a minute, including what the dev post could mean. But I also think it would be disingenuous of me if I didn't say that there was one simple fact that is at least a slight contributor to this feeling of less fun. The game isn't new anymore. Overwatch has been out for over 3 years, and by this point, we've kind of experienced most of it. Most of the player base have played the heroes it wants to and seen the styles and combos and strategies it wants to as well, which means that nothing is really new to them anymore. And when nothing is new, the community starts to get antsy, things get boring, and that fresh feel that a game has when it's new goes away. You start to take the base game for granted because you've already exhausted it and you start needing more. And that's actually totally fair. When we continue to give Blizzard money through loot boxes and Overwatch League tokens and merch and all access passes, it's fair that the community should continue to expect new things to keep them feeling excited rather than the current feeling of stagnation and frustration that they have. This also leads me to my second point, which is a big area that Blizzard have kind of let us down: a lack of content. For over a year now, I'd say Blizzard has gone incredibly dark on giving us new content and even communicating with us. Only recently have they started chatting to us through these dev posts again, but other than that, they've been pretty hush. Obviously for a while, we wondered why this was, but we found out the reason for their quietness at BlizzCon 2019, Overwatch 2. It's the grand project that Blizzard have diverted a large amount of their attention to, and while the community is excited to eventually get their hands on it, you can't help but wonder how much of a community will even be left when Overwatch 2 drops if so many players keep quitting the game because of how boring it's become for them. I mean, let's look at the numbers. In 2017, we had 17 developer updates. In 2018, this went down to 13. And in 2019, we only had 7. In both 2017 and 2018, we had 3 new maps and 3 new heroes each. In 2019, we only had 2 of each and only 1 new PvE campaign as opposed to multiple ones in each previous year. It's inarguable that there's been a significant decline in how much Blizzard is giving us as a community. And honestly, that's not cool. I'm not saying this is the devs' fault, because from everything I can see, it's clear they're working incredibly hard. Obviously their first focus is on Overwatch 2, but Blizzard is well known for being notoriously short-staffed and keeping teams smaller and tighter than perhaps is justified. I mean, having made profits of over 200 million in the third quarter of 2019 alone, they definitely can't make the argument that they couldn't afford to pay for a few more devs who could still give us Overwatch 1 content while they work on the sequel. Like I said, if you don't introduce anything new to a game, it's only inevitable people will get bored, particularly if they're unhappy with the state of the game itself. And that brings me to my final, and perhaps most significant point, the way the game is playing right now. Now there's 2 aspects of this that I think are relevant. Firstly, the state of the meta and hero balances, and secondly, the larger picture of the game itself. Now I don't think it's unfair to say that recent metas have been some of the most boring that Overwatch has ever seen. When the absolute optimal comp is played, that being Orisa, Sigma or Rein, Mei, Hanzo, Baptiste, and Ana or Zen, the game feels incredibly unengaging, and to be honest, unlike how Overwatch was supposed to be. For tanks and supports, the main focus has become to just not die, And for DPS players, it's all about spamming shields as Hanzo and walling people and holding left click as Mei. It's not the fast-paced, interactive, dynamic experience we were promised and have played throughout the course of Overwatch's lifespan. Of course, for a lot of people, this isn't their experience, particularly in the metal ranks where metas aren't that heavily adhered to. But in ranks and games where someone pulls out the Mei, this chess game becomes inevitable and you end up having to mirror with a Mei and double shield of your own if you don't want to get rolled. However, even for the players in the metal ranks, there is a different problem that is having a severe impact on how fun things are: the lack of tanks. It's been common knowledge for a while that tank is the least played role in Overwatch, but rather than taking steps to reverse this, we've actually seen the trend continue downwards. For over a year now, we've seen less and less people want to play tank, and the reason isn't hard to figure out: Orisa. Orisa has been the single strongest tank pick in Overwatch since the introduction of 222 and has honestly killed the motivation for many tank players to play the role. Call it unfortunate timing, but Blizzard dropped Sigma the same time they introduced role lock, and as they killed goats, they unleashed a monster that they perhaps didn't even expect to create. The double barrier meta was born, and with it came the most unengaging way to play Overwatch till date, endlessly spamming shields down while you wait for something to happen. Now, recent nerfs have addressed this problem somewhat, and barriers are breakable now, but with Mei being such a strong pick, tanks still have no choice but to run Orisa Sigma most of the time. And as a main tank player myself, it feels torturous to queue for a game, knowing I'm inevitably going to be forced to pick the mechanical horse. It makes me not want to queue at all, to be honest. I don't log on to Overwatch to drop shields on cooldown and spam halts hoping that my team will please maybe follow up on them. Orisa's playstyle, combined with the steady increase of crowd control in the game, i.e. things that deny you control of your character, has driven tank players away like the plague. Why is this a problem? Well, it has a huge knock-on effect on the rest of the game. When there's less tank players, it makes queue times longer for other roles, since we've now introduced a 2-2-2 system and have to put 4 tanks in the lobby. It also means that there's a boosting effect it has on tanks, and this is something top tier players have complained about a lot recently. Because there aren't enough GM and top 500 tanks compared to the other roles, you'll see Master and even Diamond tanks get pulled up into these games just to make up the numbers. These players understandably don't play to the same level as the other players in the lobby, and their bad decisions and subpar play make the game much less fun for their team and also lower the general quality of the match itself. But because there's such a shortage, inevitably one of the 2 bad tanks who's been pulled up to a rank above where they should be will win and gain SR, climbing even further into a rank they haven't learned how to actually manage and play in. It bypasses the normal training journey that ladder is supposed to bring, and that every other role in Overwatch has to go through to get better. This then obviously affects all ranks. If Master's tanks are being pulled into GM, then Diamond tanks will be pulled into Master, and Platinum tanks into Diamond, and so on, till we've now created a whole community where players in one specific role, tank, which is actually the most important role in Overwatch, are now playing significantly worse than the rest of the lobby, making the game feel more frustrating and less rewarding for everyone involved. As a DPS or support, if you reach Platinum, you will have ironed out mistakes that you used to make in Gold, but now you're in the lobby with a tank player who constantly makes those same mistakes and they're still rewarded with wins because the other tank is also bad. How annoying a game is that going to be for you to play in? Practically infuriating. But at the same time, what incentive is there for you to pick up the role when inevitably the playstyle has become so joyless? None. And this is what finally brings us to Blizzard's post. Jeff Kaplan, in replying to a post in the forums, revealed that for the last few months, the Overwatch devs have not been playing 2-2-2, but instead have been trialing a 3-2-1 system with 3 DPS and only 1 tank. Now, Jeff said that this is an experiment rather than a preview of what's to come, but we definitely need to discuss the implications of it. In the post, Jeff talks about what effect this had on the game and also specifically tank players. Overall, he said the game felt more brawly, messy and FPS-y. He also said that it felt a bit more like the Overwatch of old when teams had a free pick and inevitably tank players were at a premium, meaning that multi-DPS comps were a frequent occurrence. Significantly, he talks about how this change would require serious rebalancing of the current tank heroes and potentially the removal of the off-tank role altogether in favor of making everyone a main tank capable of solo tanking. Now, I'm not usually one to be so unequivocal, but this, in my humble opinion, is a terrible idea. This is just how I feel right now, and perhaps listening to other people and you guys in the comments will change my mind, and I'm happy to do so, but this is my current perspective. Clearly, Overwatch has a lack of tanks. Despite the role's importance, no one wants to play it because of the unrewarding playstyle and lack of general community knowledge on what the role involves. So why would you try and solve this problem by making the game more DPS friendly? If the problem is that tanking doesn't feel fun and everyone is running away from it, we need to work on ways to make tanking feel better, not worse. I'm genuinely worried that if we implement a 3-2-1 system where there's now one more DPS to kill tanks with and one less source of protection for tank players, we're gonna make tanking an even more lonely and soul-crushing experience. And then, when we inevitably still don't have enough tank players to fill one slot, what will we do? It'll be too late to turn back the clock and we'll just have to remove the tank role altogether. In his post, Jeff talked about how in the devs experiments, the pressure of being solo tank actually caused a lot of people to flat out not want to play tank anymore. Nobody liked that responsibility of being the one person who's the target of 6 enemy players desperate to kill you quickly, knowing that if you do die, your team will collapse. I mean, it's the ordinary pressure of a tank doubled. Another thing he mentioned was quite telling of his mindset, and basically what he said was that certain roles tend to draw certain types of players. What he shied away from saying outright is that in most games, even WoW for example, everyone wants to play the carry role, which is usually the damage role. These kinds of players want all the glory of claiming that they were single-handedly responsible for winning the game, and Jeff basically suggested that he hoped more players like that would be attracted to solo tanking in this new format. I mean, I think he's a fantastic guy, but he's massively wrong on this one. Jeff, you're a Hanzo main. Let me tell you what it feels like when you're actually main tanking. Being a tank is inherently a thankless role. Why? Because it's not the role where you get all the kills. Sometimes you might, but generally, your job is to help your teammates secure kills and enable them the best you can. And this means taking damage and even dying for your team if needed. And enabling others is inherently the opposite of trying to be a solo carry. The two cannot mix without something being compromised. And when you are main tanking, the only thing that actually gives you some peace and joy in life is having supports and most importantly, an off tank who helps keep you alive and let you do what you need to do so that the DPS can thrive in turn. If the game shifts to solo tanks, it basically means that every tank will have to be like Orisa or Hammond, where their main focus is just on having survival abilities rather than making space or plays. They'll also likely be massively overpowered so that they can survive all the crap being flung their way, which is another net negative for the game. Good tanks understand how to position and manage their life and shields. If everyone becomes Orisa, a tank player with just a button that can make you immune to everything, then we're gonna go further down the rabbit hole of creating boring and unengaging playstyles. And I'm not even gonna get into the discussion of how much more power creep this would encourage. The other alternative is that we go to the opposite end of the scale and tanks will also become kill chasers, turning matches into much more of a deathmatch, free-for-all type of game. At that point though, we'd have basically turned Overwatch into Apex Legends. And to be honest, I think that's what some people want, but again, it's a bad idea. Don't get me wrong, I like Apex, and I've been playing it a lot actually, but it's frankly a much more brainless game. Even though you have quote-unquote tanks and supports in Apex, ultimately all anyone is trying to do is get a good gun and kill people. There's really not that much nuance to it. And if you think teamwork in Overwatch is bad, just take a look at what kind of attitude that breeds in an Apex community where getting the last hit on a kill is the difference between your own SR going up or down. None of this is Overwatch. What made Overwatch fun and popular originally was that it was a dynamic and fast-paced game, yes, but one that didn't rely on a purely FPS-based focus on getting kills and nothing else. It had concepts like tanking, creating space, and it had heroes who could thrive through game sense alone rather than raw mechanical ability. This is what drew such a large and diverse audience to it. So I think if Overwatch wants to make these players happy and have fun again, it needs to solve two core issues which are strongly interconnected. Firstly, it needs to make sure that there aren't too many abilities or characters in the game like Mei who just stop you from playing your hero. It needs to reward smart and skilled play, not a mindless use of abilities on cooldown, which is pretty much what Orisa is. And that's where it needs to solve the second issue of the tank problem. Playing Reinhardt and Winston felt fun in previous formats of Overwatch because they had dynamic playstyles. You constantly had decisions to make and had ways to protect your team that came at the cost of other things. But you also had the potential to swing the outcome of a fight through smart play. You didn't require intense mechanical ability, but really no one can say that Reinhardt and Winston aren't skillful heroes. There's nothing more satisfying than landing a huge shatter to win a fight, or popping a primal rage and knocking people off the map, or killing a key target. Dropping supercharge and watching other people kill things from behind your shield just doesn't give that same reward, that same sense of fun and accomplishment, and yeah, that dopamine hit that we all crave when we play Overwatch. So first and foremost, the devs need to look at the state of tanking and structure the game around making tanking feel more fun. Because when tanking is fun, players will want to play the role, and will learn how to make space and make plays for their team, which in turn results in a more fun and higher quality match for all their teammates too. If the problem is that we have too many DPS and not enough tanks, The answer isn't to shit on tanks even more and let DPS kill things even more easily because there's 3 of them now. The answer is to find ways of making people want to play tank again. Because I think these issues of a boring meta, a lack of new content, and also a game state which fundamentally doesn't reward the things which are supposed to be core principles of the game are the biggest reasons why so many people have stopped having fun in Overwatch and why so many people have stopped playing the game altogether, testified by the plummeting Twitch numbers. And if we can address these issues first and foremost, other things like DPS queue times will also be solved in the process. Because guess what? If you've got more tanks, you've got more games. So that's all I got for today, guys. Hope you found this video helpful. Sorry if it turned into a bit of a rant, but as someone who truly loves Overwatch, I want the game to be as fun as it can be. And although I genuinely think that devs are working to make the game better, and of course they have the best intentions in mind, I do think they're making a big mistake in not actually addressing the key problems of Overwatch itself. As always, I want to give a big shout out to my patrons who do the awesome job of supporting me, including my new top patron, Chase Knave. If you'd like to do the same, then please do sign up, and remember to tune in for Group Up on Friday evening at 6 PM EST and 11 PM British time. But that's it from me. I'll be back before you know it with another video. See you guys soon.